Hey dudes, today I have something a little different for you. I was going through the old UseNet posts, and I stumbled upon an all-out war of ideologies. This was originally posted on September 4th of 1996, and for the sake of our timeline, let's go over what was going on in Magic the Gathering at the time. So, Legacy was introduced in May of this year, and it was called Type 1.5 at the time. Pretty much all cards were legal, except for the ban list, which was every card that was either banned or restricted in Vintage, which was called Type 1 at the time, and Standard, called Type 2. Land Tax was just banned out of Standard and Legacy in July, and Commander received its first claim to fame by getting a spotlight in The Duelist with an article called Elder Dragon Legend Wars. The format was called Elder Dragon Highlander at the time. It's also interesting that Standard had a restricted list at this time. The hottest news on the block is the restriction of Hymn to Tourach and Strip Mine in Standard, as well as the restriction of Fastbond in Vintage. Consequentially, this also banned Hymn to Tourach, Strip Mine, and Fastbond in Legacy, or Type 1.5 at the time, as that's how Legacy's ban list worked at the time, as I said 6 sentences ago. Anyway, this video is showcasing how we, as a people, never really change, by highlighting an argument I found in the UseNet posts. People often argue, and they get especially cruel and vicious when there is no threat of getting hit in the face. I don't know if the term internet tough guy is still in circulation, but it poignantly describes this whole situation. This argument is also funny as hell. The absurdity of this situation had me almost in tears laughing so hard. So I felt obligated to shine a light into this for all of you. I'll be adding my own commentary throughout this video, but much of what will be said in this video will be the epic slap fight in the no consequence field of internet forums. I hope you enjoy the ride as much as I did. So, without further ado, let's start with the post that started this slap fight. Hello. I know my opinion won't matter much, but I have to get this out. WotC bases their restricted and banned lists off of statistics from the Pro Tour and similar tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is just a very small portion of the total population of Magic players. I believe this is wrong. What about the other 1 trillion, you get the idea, other players who play in local tournaments using these lists? Most people don't feel that strip mines, fastbonds, and hymns are too powerful. But because of a few of the elite few who play in their tournaments cry like little babies, the rest of us suffer. I propose a solution to both players who can get online and WotC. There is a period of 3 months between banned/restricted days, 6 months for Type 1, when a card is being reviewed for possible banning or restricting. I believe the following would be the fairest possible solution, and I hope to hear from many others who agree with this statement. 1. WotC should create a page with simply one forum and a mailing list. When a card is being reviewed for possible banning or restriction, WotC would email everyone on the list to let them know the form about the card is out there and ask them to fill it out. The form would state the following. A. The card in question. B. If we, the players, would or would not like to see it restricted banned. C. Why it should or should not be restricted banned. 2. A mailing list should be created so everyone will know the form is out there. A player would simply send WotC his or her name, email address, and DCI number, Arena League number, or some definitive way of identification so one person cannot fill out multiple forms. WotC could use this list to let all interested parties know what's going on. 3. 3 to 6 months, depending on if it's Type 1 or Type 2, should be plenty of time for us to hear about and fill out the forums, and for WotC to tally up the results. If the majority of players feel that a card should be restricted or banned, then so be it. Nobody can complain this way. I believe that if enough of us copy this letter and ask for this. Maybe WotC will listen. I ask that if anyone wants to join me in this quest, email me and let me know. If anyone has any opinion, let me know. If anyone wants to join me in mailing this letter to WotC, the more we send to them, the better the chances they'll listen. Hopefully, if we can get a few hundred or thousand people to mail this to them at the same time, maybe we can get them to change their policies. I hope to hear from you. Okay, that is a lot of opinion in a relatively short amount of text. There is an insane amount of replies to this post compared to most of the posts I sift through, and I'll highlight many of them as we continue, but I kinda need to say my piece before I continue, so I hope you'll afford me the luxury. First off, there is nothing shameful about not being good at Magic. It's a game, and it's meant to be fun. It's true that it's hard to have a good time if your playgroup is at different skill levels, and it's also frustrating to be restricted from playing cards that you want to play with. But, newsflash, you aren't restricted from playing cards you want to play. Until you're in some kind of tournament setting, the only rules you need to follow are the ones agreed upon by the players of that game. If you and so many other players like playing with these cards and don't find them oppressive, nobody is stopping you from playing those cards. It's true you can't just randomly plop down for a pickup game at a random LGS or mall or wherever you and your cardboard buddies hang out, but kitchen table Magic is really easy to play and organize. Just play with your cards, dude. Ask your opponents to play made-up formats. They might be interested in it as well. Secondly, why do we need to start with the name calling? Sure, some tournament grinders are pretty fucking cringe. But there are cringe people in every walk of life. The long and the short of it is that tournaments are meant to be won, and people will play whatever strategy they think gives them the greatest odds of achieving that. When you put together that many people with a win-first mentality, they will explore and gravitate towards the best strategies. I'm not saying cards have never been slept on, but a vast majority of the time, good cards are discovered and abused. The best players understand the game the best and play the most optimally. Bans and rule sets absolutely should be based off the data you receive from events like this. To say otherwise is simply delusional. Mark Rosewater has said, every Magic card is someone's favorite Magic card. And this line resonates with me even if there is no way to objectively prove that. Because the idea of it is sound, and it does really suck not being able to play with your favorite cards. Even if you just like the play pattern for whatever dumb reason you have, it sucks being told that you can't do something. The lynch mob that slammed through Twitter when Mana Crypt got banned in Commander is evidence of this. But people are irrational to a fault. You can play Magic however you want. You just need to find at least one other person willing to play the game the way you want. It's especially funny because people are mad that they are forced to play Magic in a way they don't want to, but don't understand the irony that any rule set of any kind, even a complete lack of a ban list, forces somebody to play Magic in a way they don't want. I've never understood people that complain like this in a competitive game where both players have the same rules. You can play anything not banned, just like your opponent can play anything not banned. But getting butthurt over a ban or lack of a ban is so inherently selfish it blows my mind. You just cannot play that format if you don't like it. And finally, this person's proposed solution is the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. Bro literally said there is 1 trillion players and WotC should be responsible for the logistics of reading 1 trillion emails from mouth breathers and knuckle draggers. It's not even a form that could be reasonably collated with yes or no questions. Like, who the fuck is going to sit down and read even 1,000 emails that are a paragraph about why Don the dumbass and Timmy think that Hymn to Tourach is totally not an oppressive piece, but instead a flavor win, and I really like it in my Plaguerats deck. Seriously, the logistics of a request like this are mind-blowing, and it's really funny whenever I see someone complain about something online, then demand a corporation deal with the logistics of solving it. I'm so mad someone is making me defend WotC because they are absolute shit, but this is asinine. Like, just talk to your fucking friends, mate. Maybe they'll let you play the card. Or talk to the game store owner hosting local tournaments. They won't bend over backwards for every single dumbass request, but some LGSs do, or at least at the time, did tournaments with different ban lists. It wasn't that uncommon to have unofficial tournaments if that community had a different idea of what was powerful and fun. People lack empathy and self-awareness, my dudes. But I've ranted about this long enough, and some people ass-blasted this dude in the comments anyway. So let's go over some of what others have said. 3 to 6 months for one card is too much. The card in question will reign on top of the tourneys for a period far longer than what we are accustomed to. The only card that I have a problem with is the banning of Mind Twist. Other than that, I see eye to eye with the DCI. Cards that need to be restricted are those that are way too powerful, in excess of 1, but are still very powerful when restricted to 1 card per deck, such as Time Walk, way powerful if you have 4, mildly/very powerful with just 1. Cards that should be banned are those that can give a first turn kill, besides being powerful later in the game. I agree that the timetable on this idea is a bit much, but this particular comment launched a lot of arguments, so let's go over this slap fight quickly. This guy named Fred spoke up first. Oh? How did you figure that out? If a card is unfair, it's unfair. Why allow a little wound, 1 unfair card, just because it doesn't hurt as much as a huge wound? 4 unfair cards. Fred. Then somebody named Craig decided to get involved. He never said the word unfair. Come back to the topic. Craig. That'll be ironic later. Fred posted back. No, I'm the one who used the term unfair. I think that's the word that summarizes cards that are way too powerful in excess of 1, but are still very powerful when restricted to 1 card per deck. I suppose if we are talking about a card that potentially increases in power when you encounter more than 1 of them in the same game, in example, Plague Rats, the 2 concepts might not equate. But otherwise, a card that is too powerful in groups of 4 is too powerful as a single card. Thus, unfair. My word for it. Fred. Then, the original poster, a person named Eric, got back with this. I'm not saying that everything should be unrestricted. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that players other than professionals and championship tourney players should have a say as to what should or should not be restricted, so long as they have a valid argument backing them up. Thanks, Eric. Then Sardian Colossus snapped back at Fred. Let's see if I can explain this for the mentally impaired. If a card is very powerful, in example, it's in many decks, just because it can win easily and or the first person to pull out this card usually wins, it needs to be restricted so that it is way powerful. In example, it's a good card, but since I only have 1 in my deck, it's balanced. By your logic of little wound/big wound, or something, I have no idea what logic sits behind this, cards should be all or nothing. 1 demonic tutor is a little wound, so why not have 4, a big wound? Since a wound is a wound. We can't change nothing, nor do we need to. Okay, the pejoratives seem a little unnecessary, and I'll be honest, I've kind of lost the plot. Like, what the fuck are we even talking about anymore? I think Sardian is against getting rid of the restricted list, which, fair point. I think having a restricted list is an interesting way of banning, but I do see the value in not having one as well. Why do internet arguments always branch off from whatever the point was supposed to be? I thought we were mad or not mad about which cards were banned restricted, not that restricted cards even exist. Anyway, this is what we're arguing about now, I guess. Fred snapped back. It's not balanced because you only have 1 in your deck. If it's too powerful to be a fair addition to the deck, it's too powerful in any number. Limiting the number you can stick in your deck only limits how much extra advantage you can get out of any one type of card. But regardless of how often you draw it, it's still too much of an advantage when you do. Then he responds to the idea that the restricted list shouldn't exist. Exactly. This is why Demonic Tutor should have been banned as soon as they realized it was an unfair card. Fred. Again, I thought this post was about how WotC made the decisions to ban/restrict cards, and which cards they banned or restricted, not the existence of the restricted list. Fred's logic is so far pretty sound, but again, what the fuck are we even talking about? Anyway, Sardian Colossus is getting pretty heated here. You obviously think that any restricted card must be too powerful to even play with one. Now there's an idea. Ban the cards because they let you do something powerful. I think you're just tired of getting your ass kicked by someone with the big 9. You're too much of an extremist. All or nothing. Why don't you play Type 1.5? There, you won't have to struggle against any of the really big, unfair, edge-giving cards that might hurt you. Why not learn to make a decent deck idea that can beat power players? I don't have any of the Power 9, but my deck can easily place in the top 18 in large tourneys. You're scared of a Time Walk? Use a Counterspell, or a Red Elemental Blast, or a Pyroblast. Not too hard. You think that just because you have a weak deck that everyone else must lose their cards to become as pathetic as you are. Cards are to be banned because of unfairness. They are to be banned because they give players an edge that is too big to get around. By reducing the number of cards allowed in a deck, you lose the amount of edge. Demonic Tutor is powerful in numbers, but by itself it is no more powerful than a Serra. Why don't you get the $20 to buy a Jester's Cap, so you can then get rid of the big, scary cards? Or do you think the cap should be restricted too? Hope you drop dead, Fred. Sardian Colossus. Okay, Sardian is clearly big mad, and also out of line. Drop dead over a disagreement as fatuous as this? Like, have some fucking decorum. Also, Jester's Cap kinda sucks, and doesn't solve any of the problems. But that might just be a tongue-in-cheek joke. It's hard to say what's hyperbole and what's just seething rage. I am starting to side with Fred more as this exchange plays out, but let's see how they responded. I see. Anyone who disagrees with you has ulterior motives. I've heard this line before. It's the diversion of choice by people who like to avoid the issue. The truth of the matter is that when a card gets too powerful, everyone plays with it. Me and everyone else. Boring. This is also besides the point. If all you can say is that a better construction format than T1 already exists, fine. Then why restrict Time Walk? If there's all those cards which counter it, and if the existence of countering a spell for a Time Walk negates its power, sounds to me like they should just allow 4 in the game. Hell, let them fill their decks with Time Walks. We have counter spells. We're going to win. Yeah, brilliant. Why allow them any edge at all? Why not keep the game limited to cards people realistically might not want to play if it's wrong for their deck's theme, as opposed to cards you automatically shovel on into your deck if you own them? Hey, if it's really the card I need to stop all these horrible power cards in their tracks, then it surely should be, don't you think? Trouble is, it doesn't and shouldn't be. Jester's Cap, what a joke. If you have time to play, you could have already done much worse things to your opponent. Thanks. It's good to know you take intellectual disagreement so well. Mature response to disagreement demonstrates that a person has confidence in the correctness of his position on the issues. Fred. Now that's decorum. Fred comes back swimming but avoids unnecessary pejoratives and just sticks to their points. That last bit of sass was chef's kiss. I don't think this argument is stupid though. Banned and restricted both have a place as they foster different environments. And I also think these people are just talking past each other with no real desire to see the points that the other is trying to make. Fred is making his points more succinctly, but literally none of this has anything to do with the original post. It's just two nerds with internet access slap fighting. Anyway, here's Sardian Colossus. Fred, I wish I could make sense when I type. I've never seen someone so stubborn. Do you see your extremist ways? I give you an example. that cards like Time Walk are counterable because they are limited in number. You can't even argue straight. I say one thing, cards are not as powerful, limited. You say the exact opposite. Why not have 4? Do you even look at the words you type? Let's see. Ancestral Recall is mildly powerful. Since it's mildly powerful, why not make it overly powerful and put 4 in a deck? The purpose of Type 1 is to let players use most of the cards they want, and the environment is maintained as unbroken by restricting certain power cards. I stated that you should try 1.5 because you obviously don't like the T1 environment and want to play with cards not allowed in the T2 environment. I didn't say any type of play is better than another. They are totally different ways to play, and neither one can be deemed better than the other. What the hell is with the maturity level? Since when is that an issue? I don't see myself in an intellectual argument. You see Magic as an intellectual sport, don't you? I see myself rebutting against a statement that has no backbone or forethought. Jester's cap a joke? Glad you think so. Let's see. Middle of the game and I'm holding my own. Out comes my cap. I use it to give myself some advantage. Yeah, that card really sucks. You can't limit the environment to cards that people would realistically not want to play. That's not what Type 1 is about. It's not what Magic is about. The game is about overcoming the odds. What odds are left when you take out everything that could potentially make you lose? Do you think after World War II, Japan said we should ban nukes because they hurt us tremendously? No, they fought back. Economically, that is. Fred, I leave you to your totalitarian ways. Sardian Colossus. I've wasted too much time arguing with an extremist mind who thinks that cards don't deserve a restricted list, just a ban list. If anyone reads this post, other than the joyful Fred, please post your thoughts. Though I am sorry that it may bore you, for arguing with someone who refuses to try to reason can be somewhat like watching grass grow. What the fuck am I even reading? I love how Sardian tries to take the high road here despite calling Fred mentally impaired and telling him to drop dead. I agree that having restricted or not having restricted isn't better or worse, just a different experience, but this dude is pompous to a fault. Also, Jester's cap is a joke. It's not a good card. Also, why the fuck is he bringing up the nuking of Japan? That line is in terrible taste. But that was the end of this particular slap fight. Fred must have decided he had better things to do because he never responded to this, which I think is probably for the best. None of this was a productive area of discussion by any stretch of the concept of productivity, and really it was just two people turning into asshats. There were, however, some rational people in this thread as well, and some of them even stayed on topic. Steve said the following: an important observation. Several of the places that sponsor local tournaments modify the formats to one that they think are interesting or that support the local players. They are not rated tournaments, but they are a lot of fun. I believe the standard formats, Type 1, 1.5, 2, IA/all, Sealed Deck, Booster Draft, Grandmaster, etc., have advantages and disadvantages, and players who want to play a specific type of tournament should promote it and hold their own. That's a pretty rational take. Every format adds and takes away from the game in various ways, and none of this is a bad thing. Another poster said this: I disagree with the post saying that we should change the way restrictions and bannings are created. The majority of players don't know squat about the game, including me. WotC has people who spend 8 or more hours per day analyzing this game, and these are the people who are making the decisions, or at least informing those who make the decisions. Strip Mine is definitely too strong, as it is a zero casting cost stone rain, which cannot be countered. Hymn to Tourach, on the other hand, is not too strong, but was restricted because it was affecting the decks people built, and game was being spray-painted black. Because the combo of running Hymns, Strip Mines, and Necro was just too good for many people to pass up. Any deck type can be tourney winning, if built right. So once the Necro formula was figured out, everyone began to mass produce it. Who wants to play in a tournament where more than 50% of the decks contain 4 hymns to Tourach and 3 or 4 necropotents? Every single game would be exactly the same. Go play poker instead. Solid points all around. Magic's complexity and modularity are what make it such an interesting game. Bans like these ones are meant to widen the diversity of meta, which is a good thing. People usually don't want to play the exact same thing over and over again. If that's your jam, no shade, of course, but tournament Magic should never feel stale. Raven popped in with an opinion. Sorry, folks, have to get in my 2 cents worth. I may be in the minority on this, but I am strongly opposed to about half the ban list due to the following 2 ideals. 1. Any deck is beatable, and often from one of similar make. And 2. Whatever combo you come up with, you can rest assured that WotC will inadvertently come up with a new series that has 1 or 2 gems in it that render your combo worthless. Unless, of course, we're talking homelands. He 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 he. Banning or restricting cards is simply a stopgap measure that, in my opinion, serves no one, at least in the long term. In a perfect world with no design mistakes, I can respect and agree with this opinion, but banning and restrictions have absolutely been necessary throughout the game's history. If we still played the game as it came out with no bans or restrictions, every game would be getting ass-blasted turn 1 by a 40-card deck that was nothing but Channel, Fireball, and Black Lotus. And if you weren't one of the 10 people that had access to that deck, you could just never consistently win a tournament ever. I get not liking bans. I don't like bans. But they do serve a very important purpose for keeping the game at least somewhat balanced. Ugh. This is getting exhausting, so I'll only cover a few more points I think are worth going over. The next user took exception to the idea that Hymn to Tourach isn't too powerful. As one of those many players, I don't even play in tournaments on a local level, I feel that hymns are definitely too powerful. Think about how hard it is for you to draw 2 cards. And I agree with him. There are obviously ways to draw cards, but unless you're using Ancestral Recall, none of those ways are efficient or powerful enough. But others disagreed. The next response had this to say. Let's see. Howling Mines, Cantrips, Bauble, Phyrexian Vault, Jaloom Tome, anyone? Other than that, if you're forced with a hymn-saturated deck, play a deck with 4 Nether Shadows, 4 Ashen Ghouls, and 4 Necro Savants, as well as other work from the graveyard cards. I hymn you. Okay, oh darn, 2 Nether Shadows. Big shit grin. There's always a way to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. The above works for counterspell users too. Quite frankly, I think this is an L take. This is the type of view you get when you don't play the game a whole lot. Howling Mine gives your opponents cards, and they get the first draw off of it. If that doesn't sound bad to you, you probably don't play at a high level. This is the type of advantage you can't really afford to hand out when the margins are so tight at top level play. And before you say Icy Manipulator, that card costs 4 mana and requires another mana invested to hit Howling Mine. This works fine in a control deck, but does nothing for you when you're getting hymned on turn 1 or 2. Icy is a good card, and Howling can be a good card, but neither of them do anything against early hymns. Cantrips just replace themselves, so they don't actually draw a card. If your hand is ripped away, they help a bit, but they are by no means a counter to card disadvantage. You could call them a check, but that's as charitable as I'll be. Urza's Bauble is a cantrip. Again, just replaces itself. It's good, but it's not saving your ass from him. Phyrexian Vault really makes me laugh. It requires 3 mana to cast, so this already isn't likely to help. Then you have to pay another 2 mana, which is asking a lot when you're getting your hand ripped away. Oh, and you need to sacrifice a creature. What is a creature? Usually a card, which means you're trading a card for a card. This doesn't generate card advantage, unless you've, set up a wasp nest or something. And good fucking luck with that. Jaloom Tome? Is this guy stupid? I don't think he understands card advantage at all. Jaloom Tome draws you a card and makes you discard a card. Just because a card has the word draw a card on it doesn't mean it helps you when your card advantage is being attacked. This does literally nothing. Like, is this dude trolling? I'm flabbergasted by this collection of cards he's suggested. They all cost more than 2 mana, other than Howling Mine, which is the only card he suggested that could reasonably maybe help by helping your opponent more. I also don't think he understands tournament play because he recommends using a specific deck to battle him specifically. Unless he means a transformational sideboard, but I'm not going to entertain that idea. He suggests building a deck that runs Nether Shadows, Ashen Ghouls, and Necro Savants. Okay, this guy is trolling or he's stupid. What the fuck is Necro Savant gonna do? You need to sack a creature and put up a whole down payment worth of mana on this. But yeah, just jam all this garbage into your deck to deal with one card that fucks your card selection for a fraction of the cost. Then just live in magical Christmas land where the Hymn to Tourach happens to hit both your Nether Shadows instead of your lands or something. Like, this shit is only maybe good if the right cards get hit. I don't disagree that there's always a way to turn a disadvantage into an advantage, if you don't consider the situations where that isn't the case, but this is just foolish. What an exhausting list of cards to try and justify playing against fucking Black Summer Necro decks. He's not the only person that doesn't understand card advantage, though. Here's another dipshit. Okay, that's mean. I take that back. I'm just getting frustrated. It's not hard at all to draw 2 cards. I can think of 2 artifacts that give you extra cards. One continuous, and one whenever you have the mana. Not to mention the dozens of other cards that let you draw cards after they are cast. Can you see why I'm getting frustrated, though? He doesn't even name any cards. He's just like, yeah, they exist. I can think of 2 artifacts that give you cards. First of all, there is more than 2. Second off, they are all either inefficient or they help your opponent too, in the case of Howling Mine. And again, cantrips don't technically draw you a card as far as increasing card advantage goes. They nullify card disadvantage when you use them. Him costs the card it's printed on and gets rid of 2. It's card advantage for the player casting it. Anyway, there's more discussion in this post, but it was mostly just people politely expressing their perspectives, so I've decided not to bother talking about it, because it would double the length of this video at least, and it wouldn't really add any entertainment value. Not everyone is irrational or a jackass online, and you should try not to be those things as well. There's nothing wrong with being wrong about something. We all started life by shitting in our pants. It's being willing to learn and try to understand new concepts that's important. I know we've had some laughs at some ignorance, but never be afraid that you might not know everything. You'll get closer to knowing more when you can accept that you can be wrong. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I just found this post ridiculous and thought that the garbage fire below it was entertaining. If you enjoyed watching, I'd appreciate you letting me know with either a like or a comment. And if you don't think I should occasionally do videos like this, let me know that as well. But I do think it's sometimes fun to look at different aspects of Magic's history. And like it or not, arguing on the internet takes up a significant amount of Magic's history. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a magical day.